The Pinball Network is online. Launching
Silverball Chronicles.
Sure.
Perfect.
He's got the clap.
He's got the
He's
clap.
got the clap, 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 clap. He's got the clap. An AC/DC song I hate. Ugh.
Hello, everyone. I'm David Dennis, and this is Silverball Chronicles. With me this month, like every month, is Ron Snowed In Hallett. How you doing?
Not yet. That'll
No?
be tomorrow, supposedly.
Woo! It's been
Yes.
cold up here in the Northeast.
Yeah, eh?
It's been wild for us. We don't have a lot of snow. Like, we haven't had any of those epic snowstorms where 40 centimeters falls down in one 2-hour period.
I don't know what centimeters are.
Oh, I guess I got to look that up, right? That's like a foot and a half, maybe.
Come on, you got to use the proper terminology. America.
15 inches.
Oh, okay. So like a foot.
Yeah, like a lot of snow just sort of appears, and then you wake up and use your snowblower and get out. We haven't had any of those, but it's been cold. It's been like minus 22, which is probably like minus 4 or 5 for you guys.
So does every Canadian have a snowblower?
Pretty much, yeah. That's sort of like it's like
The
a
houses
must.
come with them, I think.
Yeah, it's like, so when I moved, I used to live in Toronto. I sold my house there, and I moved to Atlantic Canada. So when that happens, you have a bunch of Toronto house sell money, and you buy a lot of lower cost East Coast home. So you got some leftover money, and I assigned some of that money for a really nice Honda lawnmower and a really nice Yamaha snowblower. I literally took some of the profit from my home and set it aside for that.
So you're in the slums of the Atlantic.
Yes, the slums of Atlantic Canada. Just brutal, just brutal. So you just got back from California, though, so that must be really tough.
I was told that it was cold for California. It was in the 70s the first 2 days before it kind of went downhill.
Wow.
Yeah, that was nice, though.
Yeah, that's like 21 degrees. I'd kill a man for 21 degrees. I'd kill you, Ron, for 21 degrees.
Oh, my.
And how did you finish over there at Indisc? It never drains in Southern California.
I finished fourth in the one tournament.
Whoa, hey, that's pretty good.
And didn't qualify for anything else, so there you go.
Well, that's fine. Didn't you win last year? Didn't you win classics or something?
No, that was 2 years ago. I was second.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. I wish I was that good. I played in a tournament back I think the last tournament before provincials or something, and it didn't go great. I finished way out of qualifying. And this is just me just rolling in. It was not good.
Provincials. Where's my podcast mate on my other podcast, Slamtail Podcast?
Provisionals.
Provisionals for some reason.
So when we were, so that brings us up. I co-hosted with you guys over there on the Slam Tilt podcast, which I was told was the highest rated Slam Tilt podcast in the last 2 years.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I was told specifically that I popped a number. I am the hashtag the draw when it comes to podcasts. I always draw a big number. And on there, we played a lot of fun games. So go back and listen to that. I think it was episode 500,612.
Something
and a half,
like that. Yeah.
And a half, I think.
Yeah. Just go to slamtailpodcast.com. You'll see it there.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. When we were recording that, and then Bruce did say provisionals, I did hear it, and I'm like, I'm just going to let him roll. I'm just going to let it roll with that. And then you named the episode Provisional Winners, and I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, I didn't say anything when he said that either, because I was just like, I think he said that wrong. I'm pretty sure he did.
Did you go back twice? Did you wait a second?
Well,
did you do one of those?
It just during the editing process, I noticed that he said it wrong.
So everybody knows we've sold out, Ron. We are huge sellouts, which is why we got into this. You can see us sell out as much as you want over at patreon.com/Silverball Chronicles. And we've had a few new individuals join us on the Patreon since our last episode. So I would love to thank them personally for joining us.
And they said, I love that Ron Hallett, but that David Dennis guy.
They're like, I am here for Ron. Everyone else is dead.
He says out in a weird way. I don't get it.
That's right. I want to say thank you to Killer Kim for joining us. Thank you for Darby S for joining us, and Brandon L. You guys kicking in, and probably the person with the best name ever, McBain.
Hi, McBain.
They've joined us. McBain has joined us.
Cool, McBain has joined us.
On the pro level, crony level. He has
come here to lead, not to read.
That's right. And Nick H., thank you for joining us if we haven't thanked you for joining. We have a few people have joined us at the $3 a month crony level, which is just to say thank you, giving us some of your hard-earned money. We really appreciate that. Now, a few people jumped up to the $6 a month premium crony level. This is very original, pro, premium, and elitist. The $6 a month, they get into the chat room and the Discord so they can ask us questions and interact and talk about all of the shenanigans that are going on in the world today and in pinball. We also sometimes will talk about upcoming topics. And the biggest reason to jump up to $6 a month is the early ad-free access to Silverball Chronicles before it goes live in the general feeds. You also get a sticker after 3 months. Ron, what did you do with your sticker?
I put it in a little area I have in my basement where I just have nothing but stickers.
The stickers. Is that on the door?
No, it's by the streaming table.
The streaming table. Okay.
It was just a big slab of wood there. It's like, this is a perfect place for it. Boom. Stickers.
Yeah. Have you been doing a lot of streaming lately?
I have not, no.
No, you should show off those stickers. You should show off that Silverball Chronicles
Just stream the stickers. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's it. But if you want to be an elitist, you can jump up to the $20 a month tier. That is our top tier. After 3 months, you get a Silverball Chronicle t-shirt. And we did have a few individuals join us at that level this month. So, wowee! Thank you so much for that. You can also interact with us on Facebook at facebook.com/Silverball Chronicles. And we always ask that if you can give us a 5-star review or the highest amount of stars or thumbs up or check marks, that would be very appreciative because it helps other people find us in the algorithm and helps manipulate the masses to somehow enjoy our banter.
And hopefully Apple will update the podcast correctly, unlike my podcasts lately.
The Slam Tilt podcast.
Yeah, the last episode didn't show up for 2 days. I opened a ticket with Apple, and then the next morning, the episode just showed up. And then they responded to the ticket that night, basically saying, like, oh, no, your episode's updated. Thank you. And they closed the ticket. Like, what? Why wasn't it updated? Like, what was the issue?
That's right.
I hate Apple.
You can also grab a t-shirt over at silverballswag.com. We have a couple of design choices to choose from.
I love t-shirts.
You do. You got a couple of those t-shirts. You wear them to bed, right?
Especially the ones that say Ron's name first.
They do. I made sure the new one said your name first because I know that keeps you up at night. Our last episode, this one went over a lot better than I had expected. We got a lot of feedback on this.
A lot of hankering for Hankin?
A lot of hankering for some Hankin. Like, we legitimately got a lot of feedback on this, both like formally and informally from like just people messaging us through the Discord channels or messaging us on Facebook. It's been pretty wild. Grant King, he's a regular sort of reacher outer. He doesn't reach around, he reaches out to all of us. And I believe he's an Aussie, and he sent a Howzat music video to us over from Australia's YouTube, which I assume is the same as regular YouTube, except upside down.
Yeah. Oh.
And he said, great to see the recognition that Hankin deserves. They put Aussies on the map when it came to pinball manufacturing in Australia. They also had a big play in cocktail and arcade machines here in Australia. And he says, thank you for putting out Mr. Pinball because he is a very well-known pinball brand and has a great reputation here in Australia. Anyone in pinball knows that name. We also had some feedback here from Steve and Cassandra from Down Under. They wrote a lengthy email and provided a bunch of sources.
Yes, and their email is literally Hankin Pinball, so you know.
It's it's them.
About. Yes.
Exactly. Now, they are very good, close friends to David Hankin. And I guess Hankin Pinball has played a large role in their life. Now, the coolest thing here is, Ron, the games that you played at Expo were Cassandra and Steve's games. Huh?
Yeah.
Those games.
To Rob Burke, and now it's at Pastimes. Permanently, I believe.
They included a couple of photos of them having a couple of pints in front of their cars. Their Holdens. That's what I'm looking for. Holdens. It's a lengthy email. I don't want to read the whole thing, but I did take a couple of bits out that I thought were really, really cool. Remember that amazing art that we spoke about on Shark?
Yeah, well, the Shark artwork was done by a 19-year-old who happened to be the accountant's son.
Yeah, the accountant in Hankin Pinball.
Accountant's son.
And what an imagination he must have had, says Cassandra and Steve.
And
no joke.
And they answered a question I've always wondered, which is, Hankin did Empire Strikes Back. And it is licensed. They didn't, just do it illegally or whatever. And I always wondered, how the heck did they get the licensing for that and no one else did? Well, David Hankin contacted George Lucas personally and just asked him for permission. And it was granted. And
just that easy.
And the payment was a pinball for George. He got his own pinball. That was it.
Man, the North American manufacturers really blew it on that one, didn't they?
I guess they didn't ask because they figured it'd be too expensive. I mean, and literally he got it for a pinball machine.
Brutal.
So you hear that? Other pinball manufacturers, just call the call George Lucas. Well, not anymore, but just call someone up. Hey, can we do this? We'll give you a game.
Wow.
The funny thing is, cool. I think they gave Lucas a game for the Star Wars video game too. He got one of the sit-down model.
Oh,
he got his own personalized one. I would be surprised if that's all they needed to give him. Here you go. Cool.
So Dennis Lilly,
the Howzat guy.
The Howzat guy, right? So Howzat refers to what a bowler says when they think that they have got the better out of getting the ball past the bat and knocking over the wickets. Those wood poles. Mm-hmm. So they turn to the umpire and say, how's that? And the umpire rules it if the player is out or not. It's like getting 3 strikes, apparently, in baseball.
And that's the umpire. So, it sounds like you're saying the empire.
Said the empire. So what happens is the bowler knocks the wickets down. He turns over and he goes, how's that? Hey? What do you think there, mate? And then he says something. And I guess that they say it with such vigor and such oomph that it became sort of his thing. Super cool. Man, oh man. Really good feedback. Really good feedback. Now, the other thing that you had asked was about the free game calculator built into the software.
Yeah, because that was on every flyer. And I'm like, how did I never hear of this before?
Yeah, did they rip off or did they invent before that?
Before Williams? Did they beat Williams to the punch?
So this is what Steve and Cassandra say.
They say, I met with David yesterday and he confirmed that Hankin did have a free games calculator built into their software. He was completely unaware that he may have been the first to have it or there was any dispute about who came up with the idea years later. Very interesting. He is quite a humble person.
Anyway, how cool is that? They invented something and they're like, whatever. But that's just like Australians and Canadians, right? We're just sort of we don't need to tell everybody when we do something. Unlike some other nation that I know.
America! Woo!
And Dr. John. Dr. John also reached out. He says, thank you for covering Hankin. I've been trying to get David Hankin on a chat for years, but he's quite a shy man. just a few things to fill in about the Australian things. Cricket, he says, is enjoyed by the majority of the world, except for the Americas, which is changing. So we are having, specifically in Canada, we're having a lot of an immigration boom, and a lot of that is coming from Southeast Asia and Europe. A lot of those countries are coming. A lot of those immigrants are coming together, and they
they're
are
all
starting
playing cricket.
They are playing cricket. There's cricket in my town, and it's like middle of nowhere in like Canada. It's like they're playing cricket.
I never understood it. It always confuses me. The guy throws the ball, and he kind of. It seems like it's baseball, but it's not.
He also describes all the things about cricket for us because, quite frankly, I don't understand it quite that much.
I know there's different types. Like there's a type that can be played over the course of several days, like a full game, and then there's others that are more timed or something.
Now, a lot of Holden cars apparently have 2-letter abbreviations for their model descriptions, which is like where that FJ comes from, which is, of course, one of those old iconic cars. And they really don't make much sense, but there are tons of these initials among Holden cars.
Now you know.
And you complained about the regulator on scuba diving, right? So we were talking about shark and how there were like this extra thing floating around. Well, I guess scuba diving is more of a thing in Australia than it probably is in upstate New York.
That would make sense.
He says that the regulator is the thing you breathe through, which I did know. And this regulates the pressure leaving the tank into you to breathe. And they also have a second regulator for someone else to use if they run out of air whilst diving. And they call it an octopus, which is why that other one in the art was floating around. Remember, we crapped on that. We're like, why does it got 2 regulators? I also love how they use whilst. I don't use that enough.
Whilst.
Yeah,
Whilst.
we just in Canada we just say while.
Yeah, while driving. Yeah.
Yeah, we just say it kind of that way.
Mm-hmm. That's what we say.
But I
here.
feel like whilst is better.
It sounds fancier. It sounds like you're more intelligent.
It does, which is funny for an Australian.
Ooh. Wow. Not very nice, mate.
That's what it's all about, that. Aye. All right, shall we jump into today's topic?
I thought we were just reading mail for the entire episode.
No, that was long, actually. That took a while. Mm-hmm. So everybody who complains about the banter being too long in the first of the episode, well, you know what?
It's not banter, though. This is actually information.
This was pretty legit.
Like, how else would you know that they got the licensing for Empire Strikes Back? By just asking George Lucas. Hey, George, hello. My name is David Hankin. I'm an Australian pinball manufacturer. We'd like to make an Empire Strikes Back game. Wonder if it's okay. Well, what's in it for me? Well, we'll give you one of the games for free. Sure. Okay.
You had me at free.
You had me at free game.
All righty. Have you ever heard the saying, pinball is hard?
Yes, I've heard that.
Well, the team at Barrels-of-Fun hasn't. And they've decided to smash on ahead and impress pretty much everyone in pinball. It's been just under 2 years since they launched their company and their first licensed game.
Oh, wow.
So here's a disclaimer, because I like to be as ethical and I like to be as above board as possible.
You are very ethical. You might be the most ethical person I know.
That's pretty bad. You don't know enough good people. You spend too much time at the Rochester Pinball Collective,
which is located at 349 West Commercial Street, East Rochester, New York. Suite number 2965.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. Brian Savage, who is the chief business officer of Barrels-of-Fun, reached out to us at Silverball Chronicles at gmail.com and asked if we would put together an episode about Barrels-of-Fun. Naturally, I was confused, but I was humbled that somebody actually cares about us and sees us as a positive voice in pinball or something. But I was skeptical, and I figured I was being played. I did have a chat with Brian as to what he wanted. He was like, "Oh, let's do an interview. I'd love to, get us cemented in the, in the history and the zeitgeist of pinball." And I'm like, it's not really what we do. We don't really do interviews. As I thought about it after our chat, I thought, man, it would be pretty good to add something new. Because we've gone back quite a bit here in the last little while to like older older brands and things like that. And I thought it would be kind of neat to dive into Barrels of Fun. I thought it would be a good break. What about you, Ron? Do you feel like we're promoting or selling out or anything?
It's pretty early in the company's history to do an episode. I would think that they have a lot more cool history coming up.
Yeah, but we usually wait until there's some sort of scandal. We usually wait until the company explodes.
That has not happened here.
Exactly. We're looking for drama.
And Brian is a fan. I met him at TPF.
That's right.
Oh, actually, was it TPF or Expo? One or the other.
Yeah. So, but I still think Barrels of Fun deserves an episode, especially since it gives us a really cool case study of a startup that has done it very differently than most, and a manufacturer who has zero drama and has delivered all of their games ahead of schedule.
Even more impressive, 0 leaks. That is the most impressive part.
That's pretty amazing. So I figured, okay, let's give it a go. So here you go. If you want to shoot us some emails and tell us we're a sellout and we're promoting Barrels of Fun, I've been upfront and honest here in this situation. Of course, we are mavericks in pinball, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've decided to make this episode with basically zero input from David and Brian, beyond asking a few questions for clarity's sake around like production numbers and things like that. So you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
All right. Is pinball hard, Ron?
Pinball's very hard.
Pinball's very hard. Why is it so hard to make pinball? It's pretty easy, right? You just design a playfield, you screw some things to it, and then you just do that like 1,000 times.
Pinballs are too complicated. They have too many parts. There's too much stuff.
You got to get parts from everywhere. You got to get parts from Asia. You got to get parts from Canada. You got to get parts from the States. You got to put it together. They all have to be the same. You got a physical ball bouncing around. Got to deal with licensors who are apparently terrible in most cases. Pinball's pretty hard. So they always talk about like it's really easy to make one of something, and it's like kind of hard to make 10. But to make like 100 is exponentially like the end of the world. And then, of course, it just gets worse and worse and worse as you ramp it up, which is why I think when we look at like Stern and JJP to some cases, we're just like, wow, what they do is actually really impressive. Wouldn't you say?
I would say.
So what does David Van S say about pinball?
Well, who is David Van S? Well, before we get into that, what David says is, pinball is challenging in the best way. It's an intricate mix of art, mechanics, and physics, similar to running a film production. The complexity is what makes it so rewarding, whether you're a creator or a player. Seeing fans, from pinball enthusiasts to fans of the IP, experience the game for the first time is the ultimate reward for all the hard work.
Oh, it's so nice.
And David Van Ness is Australian, but I'm not going to do an Australian accent.
Come on.
No, it would just embarrassingly bad.
He's got that like really good Australian, like laid back Australian accent.
Oh, there's different types? Okay.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's just like the States, right? You got different accents based on where you are in the country and if you're in the city or you're in the rural.
Well, how about Canada? They have like some places where they actually say out, but others where they say out?
No, it's all pretty much like that. It just depends on how out it gets.
Oh, how out it gets. I got it.
Yeah. So in Atlantic Canada, we have hard R's.
Oh.
We're going to the... hey, my buddy and I, we got in a car. We went down to the bar and we had a time.
Oh, okay.
But I try to enunciate more for the podcast so you can understand me.
Well, do you remember hearing about this new company?
I remember hearing rumblings about a new company. That was like, I want to say it was like just around the pandemic. There was all this like stuff on Pinside about a new, like, oh, there's this new company and they're ordering materials, but no, everybody was really cagey, right? Nobody ever gave any specific details, which I thought was really, really interesting. Did you bump into this?
Well, the stickers started showing up everywhere.
Yeah, so that came after. All of a sudden, these people received stickers that said Barrels of Fun, and it had this really cool logo.
I don't think it said barrels. It just had the logo. And
just the logo?
It's like, yeah, I don't think it said something
it's like an exclamation mark.
Yeah, an exclamation like it's coming. It's coming. And everyone's like, okay.
Oh, God.
Here
we go.
People were burned out from stuff like Deeproot and all that. Like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
this was about the time that Deeproot was like imploding.
I think it's important to get the backdrop here, why the debut was so impressive, because everyone's just like, okay, like, stop with the stupid stickers. Just come out what you're going to come out with. We don't want, we're sick of this. And just because you had all these other failures and people were just, I think there was a low level of expectation about any new pinball company.
The best part is a low bar,
Yeah,
right?
just show your stuff and whatever it is, and stop it.
Stop joking around here, right? Because the thing with Deeproot was they were teasing all the time, and this is coming, and every house needs a pinball, and every pinball needs a house.
We're going to revolutionize, the construction and etc. Yeah.
Ferrari pinball for Kia prices. Right? It was all like blah, 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 blah. But I remember hearing from an individual on Pinside who I thought was crazy and pops up on Pinside quite regularly rambling, which I think is pretty funny. And he was like, oh no, this company is legit. There's this company coming and they're buying things and things are getting underway and everybody's just like, you're crazy. Nobody's paying attention to you, crazy old man. And then it sort of came out and it's like, oh, he was right. But I mean, nobody was spilling the beans as to what was happening. It's just things were happening. But we hear it all the time. The two major principles of this company are David Van Ness and Brian Savage. So you had asked the question, who is David Van Ness? Which, by the way, kind of a cool last name, huh? Mm-hmm. David of the S.
Well, he was known through his association with Spooky Pinball.
Yeah, that was his big thing. And he's a big lover of pop culture. I have a couple of links to some podcasts where David and Brian are guests. They talk about that, predominantly David. And they talk about a lot of this stuff, which is where I gleaned most of this information. I also stole some of this information from their LinkedIn profile. So it's quite possible that they lied on their LinkedIn profile, but
I hope not.
Who does that? But it says that there that David has over 20 years of media experience in film production, post-production, branding, product development, marketing, licensing, and project management from start to finish. He originally went to the International Film School of Australia. You're well aware of the International Film School of Australia, or IFSCA.
I'm IFSCA. I just like that. I believe he said he was the stuntman.
That's cool. I would put that on my LinkedIn if that's true. Yeah, so International Film School of Australia, right up there with the New York Film School. One of the biggest in the... I don't know, that's a lie. It could be pretty... But after graduation and after goofing around in Australia for a little while, he moved to Boca Raton, Florida, which, I mean, who doesn't want to move to Boca Raton, Florida?
Isn't it Boca Raton? Isn't that how you say it?
I thought it was Boca Raton.
Okay, you can write us in at silverballchronicles@gmail.com and tell us, is it Raton or Raton? I thought it was Boca Raton. That's how I always said it, but I'm probably wrong.
Well, I'm Canadian. I don't know. But our education system is better than the American one, so.
Wow.
Now, he worked in video production and eventually became post-production producer for a company called The Editing Company. Very original name. Now, this was around 2013. David began working with Spooky Pinball as their creative director and media specialist at the same time. So he sort of had these two parallel kind of jobs. Hard worker, I would say. Hard worker. He would travel from Texas to Wisconsin on a regular basis in his car, there and back, like on weekends or on long weekends or vacations. And he would be working with them. He actually spent a lot of time building a lot of relationships with licensors. He was the major reason that Spooky had secured a lot of the license that they have recently released, such as Halloween, the Looney Tunes, Rick and Morty, those other ones that I'm forgetting.
Scooby-Doo.
Probably Evil Dead. That doesn't mean that Spooky's not going to be able to get licenses in the future without David Van Ness now that he has left Spooky. However, he was one of the sort of the people that kind of taught them how to play that game, which I think is really, really cool. But then it was the pandemic that changed everything, wasn't it, Ron?
Yeah, it did.
Changed everything. And you remember the Pinball Show, episode 149.5, right?
That was their lowest rated one ever, I think.
Nope, the Pandemic Revisited episode. I am the hashtag the draw when it comes to ratings. Mm-hmm. One of the best episodes ever done, where we talked about the effects of the pandemic on pinball.
Have you been on that show since then? Exactly.
Well, for David Van Ness, it was time for a change as well. And there were many changes at Spooky at that time. Do you remember sort of the upheaval at Spooky during the pandemic?
You mean when Bug took over?
Yeah, there was like Bug, who is
Corwin Emery.
Corwin Emery, who is the son of what's his name, Emery?
Charlie.
Mr. Emery. He had sort of taken over, and there were some changes among some of the staff and other people. I don't know if that's a one way or the other, that people are, I don't think there was any hurt feelings, but maybe there was. I don't know. But there were a lot of changes at Spooky, and I remember the rumblings, like people were like, oh, David Van Ness left. And people were shocked because he did a lot of the animation on their screens, and quite frankly, Spooky's animation was pretty good. That's when David started planning something big with Brian Savage. And who's Brian Savage?
Brian attended Baylor University in Texas, majoring in business administration, and ended up in sales and marketing.
So Baylor University, is that a university I should know?
I've heard of it.
Okay,
I actually didn't know it was in Texas. I remember it from more of a sports thing.
Yeah, that's a whole thing down there. It's like sports in the States.
Yeah, sports are great.
So he started a thing called Fun Publications in 1993.
Fun exclamation, all capitals.
It ended up becoming a multi-million-dollar company specializing in destination marketing events and limited edition collectibles. So is it fair to say that Brian's a bit of a nerd?
Because he's into collectibles?
Yeah, I feel like that's a nerdy thing, right?
So is being a nerd cool these days?
It is. Yes, being a nerd is cool.
Did that become cool? When did that become cool? Like when all the comic book movies came out and all that? Comic-Con, all that?
Yeah, I'd say like 2006.
So all of a sudden nerds were cool. Okay.
Yeah, kind of around the time. I would say maybe, the Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan Batman, kind of that started it, I think.
I'm Batman.
I think that's around the time. Now, they produced over 34 international conventions as destination marketing specialists, and they produced over 450 magazine issues on collectibles and stuff.
They also developed over 500 limited edition G.I. Joe action figures and over 150 limited edition Transformers action figures. Ooh, I wouldn't mind the Transformers.
That's really nerdy.
More than meets the eye.
So when you think about like action figures and stuff like that, I feel like that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Right?
I would definitely like some Transformers.
Yeah, like Transformers were really cool. Transformers were really big in the 80s. I missed out on that when I was younger. I had a buddy of mine who had tons of those.
See, I'm old. I have the Megatron gun because he's a gun.
Yeah, that was before that was like,
yeah.
Woo.
And it doesn't have the orange thing at the end of the barrel to say it's not a gun either. It's that old.
So that was really big. And G.I. Joes were really big in that like late 70s, early 80s too. That was really a big thing. And those have had a bit of a resurgence, I would say, probably now. But like action figure collecting is, I think, really cool in some ways. But that's a whole subgenre. Mm-hmm. But you could see that he tapped into that sort of generational zeitgeist, and there was a magazine, and then you'd go to like conventions, like I guess like a pinball convention that would be action figures, and then they'd have these special limited edition G.I. Joes. That's cool stuff. But you don't just get those without relationships. Brian ended up coordinating with Hasbro as the licensee for over 25 years for G.I. Joe and 12 years for those Transformer brands. And his company was one of the longest continuous license holders from Hasbro for that G.I. Joe Collectors Club and Transformers Collectors. That's wild. Like that's a big license to hold on to.
He's a real American hero.
Yes. How did Brian meet David? How did this marriage come about?
Well, Brian says, David and I met because he sold me a Doctor Who pinball machine from his collection. Actually, I had to talk him out of it because it was one of the first editions with the Dalek moving topper. I shamed him into selling it because my son was a huge Doctor Who fan at the time.
So we had talked about Doctor Who.
The Dalek topper, yes. Exterminate! Exterminate!
Yeah, we did that in our Mechs That Made Us episode, probably. Right? Like, Doctor Who's a pretty cool, original, neat design. It's got some really cool bits and pieces to it. And Doctor Who was like, if Star Trek and Star Wars was not nerdy enough for you, you watch Doctor Who.
Too. I actually didn't watch Doctor Who.
Yeah, see, I didn't know Doctor Who existed until like 2010, which is pretty wild considering that it had been on the air for like 40 years at that point. It's neat, but it's weird. It's like British sci-fi, which if like British comedy is weird, just extrapolate that to British sci-fi. So they began a business relationship around this time. It was this whole thing I missed out on this. It's called the re-import craze. Do you remember this?
Yeah, you just get all these machines back.
Yeah, so it was
Europe.
like 2000s, 2010, like the industry had collapsed.
Yep.
And what was happening was like people were buying a bunch of pinballs from like Europe, and then they'd ship them back to North America and then switch them back over to American or North American standards. And a lot of that was
with the Williams stuff because if you remember from our Williams episode, who was one of their biggest distributors, the German distributor, and Williams would send a lot of their early production machines, stuff that would have stuff in it that was taken out later. They would go to like Germany. So then a lot of these got re-imported back into the US. So
in your coin box, if you ever notice that you have like a button that has Deutschmarks on it or any of that stuff, you likely have a re-import machine. I've seen a few of these EM machines that have been re-imports that have had like European coins on them. Like, what were the one, like Crones? I saw a buddy of mine had one that had like a coin slot button for Crones.
I'm trying to think if I still have any re-imports because I used to have my No Fear, I think was German.
Yeah, they have no fear in the Germans.
Yeah, the knocker didn't work because it was disconnected. And then I found out that was a common practice there where they just unplug it. They didn't like knockers for some reason.
Everybody knows that the Germans are very skittish.
Yeah.
They're skittish people. So what does Brian say
I don't know.
about their relationship?
I know what Brain says because that's what it says.
Oh, yes, well... Whoops. That's going to happen, I think, a bunch in here. Don't worry.
Well, Brian says, after the first transaction, the Doctor Who, we were talking about how many containers of pins were coming out of Europe. So we bought one thinking that there were lots of people who were looking for games to refurbish. We did okay with the 33 games. That was the start of our business relationship.
It's a good idea. And Brain also said, I had retired from running the Hasbro licensed G.I. Joe and Transformers collection clubs for 25 years, and David was working in the pinball industry with Spooky. Then COVID hit, and the world changed, and Barrels of Fun was born. You remember when Deeproot collapsed, right?
Yes.
And how there was like this, they started liquidating all the assets. They started sort of selling off the prototype playfields, and they sold like all of the metal pieces and side rails. And
there's still legal stuff going on with them to this day.
Here in 2025, early 2025, fighting with that, which is why we don't have a Deeproot episode yet. I'm looking for some closure before I...
Yeah, Robert Mueller they're still trying to get money from him. So that literally is still going on.
So so they had like pinball legs, and they had screws and pieces of metal and manufacturing equipment and the pin pods.
And LCD displays, as we'll find out later.
And this all went up for liquidation auction. A bunch of people picked up some of these things. One of those is Turner Pinball, and you remember them from their Ninja Eclipse game.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these companies that picked up stuff kind of remained nameless. Barrels of Fun picked up a bunch of the LCD screens. So if you look at their first released pin at Barrels of Fun, they have an LCD screen under the glass.
We'll get into that. Don't get ahead of ourselves.
All right. To be able to build pinball, you need a place to build pinball. And we spoke about how that was such an issue in Australia for a company called
Haggis.
Good
Lord.
Wow, I've forgotten about them that quickly. They struggled with scaling up manufacturing. So the first thing that Barrels of Fun did was they secured a 19 or 20,000 square foot facility in Houston, Texas, which is pretty big. Here was one of the clarification things that I did ask over to the team at Barrels of Fun. And I said, why Houston and not Chicago?
Reasons make sense.
The reasons make a lot of sense. Although...
Reason one... We don't live in Chicago and don't plan to move there. It's too cold there. And besides, David is really far south Texas.
Yeah, he's very like he doesn't want to be cold. And I get that. I was snowshoeing this morning, Ron.
Yeah, I don't want to snowshoe. Houston is also a huge manufacturing facility with a port for import and export of parts and products worldwide. The labor cost is much lower. Finally, we are developing secondary parts suppliers that other pinball companies don't use, so we have multiple supply channels outside of Chicago. And they're not alone. There's lots of companies that move to Texas.
Yeah, there's a lot of manufacturing in Texas. So it's not like they're in the middle of nowhere. They are in a hub.
Their only issue is the power grid because they have their own. So when it goes out, they're screwed.
Yeah, it's the windmills.
Mm-hmm.
It's the windmills are ruining the power grid. They started working on their first machine. I really like this machine. So let's talk about this.
Just to go back in time here, we were talking about the little stickers and stuff that would show up at shows about this new upcoming company, and it was across the country. Like I was in Allentown, Pennsylvania for their show. Stickers would show up. You'd be like in California for stickers. These things would show up. Texas, they would show up. Like what is this? What is this? This weird logo, this company that's coming. And we finally figured out what it was.
It's a cool logo.
And they show up at TPF with these Labyrinth games ready to go. They had some in boxes ready to go for, I'd say, one of the most impressive debuts I've ever seen.
So you were there.
I've been there for
that
everything.
debut.
I was there when Jersey Jack unveiled Wizard of Oz, and it wasn't as impressive as this. As far as just the amount of games they had ready, they had a whole row of like 10 games with a never-ending line to the point where I only got one game in because it was just such a long line.
They had banners, they had stickers, and they had merch, and they legit launched it. And I think part of the reason why they were able to put such a show of force at the Texas Pinball Festival was because they had money behind them. It wasn't just a small family or a bunch of guys getting together. It wasn't like a gal putting up a GoFundMe or what do they call those?
It was a guy from a multi-million-dollar company, his own multi-million-dollar company. So yeah,
who did manufacturing? Who had relationships?
Yes.
So he's a business person first and a kind of collector marketer second, which is really important because most of the people that start up a company in pinball are just regular individuals, which is fine. But it's a totally different game if you're trying to make something as hard as pinball and you're just like an enthusiast. They didn't position it as pinball for everybody. They didn't, they know that they're not selling a sub $1,000 pinball machine to the masses. They are specifically focused on the collectible market, limited edition numbers, and you need certain credibility and the ability to do that because people have to believe in your product. And I think they knew right out of the gate that they had to impress. And you were there. Did they impress?
Labyrinth was the first game I remember since probably Wizard of Oz, like from a debut company where you looked at it and it looked like a pinball machine by a company that had been making it for 10 years. It didn't look like a homebrew. You know what I mean? It looked like a professional manufactured company that had been doing this for years.
So when you went up to it and you gave it like a shake, it didn't go like squeaky, squeaky, squeaky.
Not just that. Yeah. It's just the appearance of how it looks. You know what I mean?
Like the physical appearance of the pinball
like
machine?
If you go like Highway, their first game there. Oh God, what was it called? The one with the racing theme. The racing theme.
People are just screaming, writhing on the highway in their car right now.
I mean, you could tell. Okay, it came from a new company because it looked it. At least to me, this looked like it could have been from any, long-time manufacturer putting out a game. It's just what it looked like.
Full throttle.
I can't believe I can't remember that name, man. I'm getting old.
Okay, so here's the thing.
And it was licensed. The first thing they say is they got a license. You can't.
They're in the collectibles market, and nobody wants to buy the collectible of Food Truck. Nobody wants to buy the collectible of Barry O's Barbecue Challenge. They want a theme that is collectible around their brand, and I'm going to have to say I am shocked and surprised it is not Transformers or G.I. Joe.
Oh, after the other.
Like, that's like his bread and butter, right? Brian Savage's bread and butter.
Well, they already made a Transformers game, and I'm sure they didn't want to just retread something.
Yeah, that probably went into the calculation.
And G.I. Joe,
I mean, they could make a Team America World Police.
oh, that would, if
That's like a modern day G.I.
if
Joe.
they ever made a Team America World Police, yes, I'm in. But that will never happen.
So the theme that they chose, Labyrinth. And Labyrinth is the licensed fantasy, creepy Muppet, David Bowie bulge theme. They have sold, I think, over 750 units, although they targeted 750
So
units.
they're already ahead of the game.
Game was designed by David Van Ness, the mechanics by Travis Mosman, software by Eric
Pripke.
and Phil Grimaldi, artwork by Jonathan Bergeron, who's a name you should recognize. He goes by Johnny Crap. Up here in Canada.
Yep, he did Jurassic Park for Stern.
Animation by Trent Armstrong. Now, I remember somewhere around the Rick and Morty time, when that came out at Spooky, there were rumblings that David Van Ness was designing a playfield. And he really wanted to jump into doing more than just the
That is
marketing
correct.
and animation.
And then it never happened. And we were like, well, what happened with that?
And then, kind of a year or 6 months after kind of those rumblings came out that David Van Ness was working on a playfield, and it was, he was very excited to release it, he was gone from Spooky. So him becoming the game designer of Labyrinth, I think, is kind of interesting. So let's talk about the theme.
Yeah, what about Labyrinth? I've never seen Labyrinth.
Okay. You've never seen Labyrinth?
No.
It's I remember seeing this when I was a kid. I want to say probably like 6, 7, 8, kind of in that age range.
Mm-hmm.
And it has this creepy, scary childhood feeling in my chest. It's like you remember Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Please, Eddie. No, I don't remember it at all.
So that movie has the same nostalgic terror in my background. Like, it was so
Terror.
Yeah, with the part when he gets rolled over with the
That's
steamroller
awesome.
at the end, and
Come on.
you find out he's a toon.
Yes.
To this day, creeps me right out.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit game. That's what I want. It's good old Jim Henson. So you know it's going to be decent at all times. I love Jim Henson.
So it creates this feeling in me of like this creepy, exciting fantasy. It's got Jennifer Connelly in it. It's so fun, and it reminds me of being a kid, but it also has this level of creepy weird that makes it so interesting. And I think that's why David Van Ness was such a big fan as well. He has the same feeling. Labyrinth is the 1986 musical fantasy film directed by Jim Henson.
I believe his last movie he directed.
Many of the stars in the film were Muppets created by Jim Henson's Creature Shop with collaboration of Brian Fraud. And this was actually executive produced by George Lucas.
Back when that meant something.
So after George Lucas made all that Star Wars money, he worked on the executive producing of a lot of films, and this was one of them.
And Howard the Duck was another one. People forget that one.
The Indiana Jones films.
He was a producer, yep.
This film starred a young Jennifer Connelly and David Bowie in tight spandex pants, where he played the Goblin King.
Yeah, he's got the bulge thing. I remember that part of it.
After Jim Henson made The Dark Crystal in 1982.
I love Dark Crystal. This is Gene Simmons from KISS. I would like you to join the Patreon for Silverball Chronicles. Becoming a pro crony is the perfect way to say thanks, and it starts at $3 a month. Want to get early access to episodes before everyone else? Want to be as cool as KISS? Interested in having your comments and questions take priority in our episodes? Jump up to a $6 a month premium crony. And then go to KISS Online. Stop that. We're not going to KISS Online. Just finish up the damn list. Want all the other perks and a shirt after 3 months? Join us at $20 a month as an elitist crony. Maybe you just want a shirt. I understand. Swing on over to silverballswag.com and pick up a Silverball Chronicles t-shirt. Then afterwards you can swing on over to kissonline.com.
See, I have not seen Dark Crystal.
It's kind of dark. And it's not a musical.
I remember I saw the Jim Henson documentary on Disney Plus. That's it's very good. Mm-hmm. Definitely worth it to watch. So Henson and Froud began thinking of a new film concept after Dark Crystal. Dark Crystal did not do very well in the film. Critics thought it was okay. Kids didn't like it.
It thought it was okay. I love that movie.
Your feelings of Dark Crystal are the same feelings that I have for Labyrinth. Now, the film was written by Terry Jones, who was originally one of the members of Monty Python.
Originally. He was always a member of Monty Python.
That's right, yeah.
Yes.
Until he died. Yeah, exactly. As you had mentioned, this was really one of the last major projects for Jim Henson, who was a crazy, nutty workaholic guy.
Yeah, I believe it didn't do particularly great at the box office, and he never got to direct another movie. And
the last thing that Jim Henson directed, the last project he worked on before he died of cancer untimely,
wasn't cancer.
No, wasn't it?
He had like some issue, and then he didn't get it looked at immediately and died.
But I thought
it wasn't cancer. I'm pretty sure it wasn't cancer.
Well, I gotta look it up.
It was something that if he'd just gone in earlier, that probably would not have been a problem. Just 53 years old.
That's brutal. He just totally robbed, right? I mean, the guy was.
We were robbed of more cool
insane.
shit. Having trouble breathing, blah, blah, coughed up blood, might be dying. But he didn't want to take time off from his schedule to visit a hospital. Then he finally goes to the hospital. Multiple abscesses in both of his lungs as a result of previous something that he apparently had for the past few days. So basically he had a really bad cold
really bad infection.
And just didn't get it looked at where he would have been fine.
So one of the last project that Jim Henson worked on before his death was at Hollywood Studios in Disney World, Muppet Vision 3D, which is one of my absolute favorite places in Disney World, which unfortunately is being closed down, and they're changing it over to...
Is that the one where you go in to the stage and Waldorf and... What's his name right there in the top? Oh yeah, I did that.
It's awesome. It's so great. Now they are changing that over to Monsters Inc. World. Quite frankly, Disney has completely mishandled the Muppets, except for like one film in the entire relationship they had since Jim Henson's passing, which is pretty pretty sad for me because I'm a huge Muppets
Disney
fan.
Disney is pretty good at destroying franchises. They specialize in that. Muppets, Star Wars, Marvel. They're great. I hate Disney, by the way, if you haven't noticed.
You and I, we're going to Disney World.
I've been there once. That was enough.
We'll go, and I will be the power hungry guide, walks you through the entire process and manages everything, and you just go along for the ride, and you will have a great time. So this had a $25 million budget back in the 1980s, and it grossed $35 million at the box office. So it did make money. It did get 77% Rotten Tomatoes, which is less than The Dark Crystal. However, it took on some serious cult classic after that. In fact, I love this movie so much. I thought, you know what? I'm going to buy this on like Google TV so I can have it. So I've put it on the Google TV. Okay. And I started watching it with my 6-year-old daughter. And when at the beginning of the movie, David Bowie steals the little baby brother of Jennifer Connelly. And my daughter freaked out and didn't want to watch the rest of the movie. It was pretty great.
David Bowie told an interviewer in 1992 that every Christmas, a new flock of children comes up to me and says, "Oh, you're the one who's in Labyrinth."
You're not like David Bowie, the legendary frickin'
absurdly rich musician.
Right.
In 1997, Jennifer Connelly said that, "I still get recognized for Labyrinth by little girls in the weirdest places. I can't believe they still recognize me from that movie. It's on TV all the time, and I guess I pretty much look the same."
Which is pretty great. Good for you, Jennifer Connelly.
Yeah, she looked good in Maverick.
So we talk about location, right? All the time. Well, you know what? In pinball, and some people still don't get this, it's IP. That's what sells pinball.
Licensing.
We talk about choosing IP a lot. Tom Neiman, you remember him? We spoke about him long ago back in the archives over at silverballchronicles.com, right?
Bally episode.
Yeah, he was the Bally licensing guru back in the 1970s.
You mean games like Wizard, Captain Fantastic, Kiss, Harlem Globetrotters, Dolly Parton, Rolling Stones.
Yeah, the good Rolling Stones.
Oh.
Yeah. This was forever ago. And we still have not learned marketing and IP is everything.
Tom Neiman says, I kind of became the licensing guy for Bally Corporate. I work with amusement parks trying to cross-promote with some licensing deals.
There it is. Cross-promote. The licensor promotes you because they want their brand out there. You promote the brand because you want people to have an emotional connection to that. That is why David Bowie's Bulge is so important to selling pinball, because I remember that as my childhood and it brings back that emotion. Neiman explained on a few older podcasts back in the day, in a couple of interviews, and in the Pinball Compendium book, all linked in the show notes, he explained that he was able to get licenses through directly contacting those relevant parties. Movie studios, record labels, celebrities, and negotiating deals where Bally would provide a certain number of pinball machines as payment rather than upfront cash payments. Now, of course, I'm sure that has significantly changed nowadays, unless you're George Lucas and you'll do anything for a pinball machine. But this allowed Bally to produce very successful licensed pinball games that sold significantly more units than their unlicensed counterparts. When licensing is too expensive, you go to, your own white label kind of branding things. But having a license is not the only thing you need, right?
According to Roger Sharp, as he stated on Topcast episode 17, he feels that the key is blending the design team's ideas with the license rather than just doing a work-for-hire licensed game. He believed the quality of the game design and creativity was more important than just having the license.
That's right. So back in the 70s, right, you just had a playfield and slap some art on and it was Kiss. Right now it's sold more than if it would be like Fire Band 2000.
It could have been any design. It could have been any theme. But because it was Kiss,
it sold more. Now we get into the 1990s where Roger Sharp is like the licensing guru over at Bally Williams. And it's become more about theme immersion and how the actual design team melds with the license. So plenty of people back in the day would make a game and then they would slap a design on it. Well, that doesn't work anymore in the 90s.
Well, bringing it back to Labyrinth, Brian Savage says, our company vision is from the collector fan's perspective. We first decide if an intellectual property is interesting to us, and will it make a great game? Some IPs are great, but may not translate well to pinball. The world is everything. If it doesn't scream the IP to the player, we will have not done our job. We want people to purchase our games because they love the world we have created and they find the game very entertaining.
I mean, a great example of IP integration is something that is sometimes hit or miss over at JJP. Kind of look at Toy Story 4 and it's sort of like that could almost be any game with just art on it. But then when you look at something like their latest release, Avatar, that is like, woo, that screams World Under Glass. But that's what Brian and David Van Ness want to have, is they want everything to scream IP.
Well, since you're a Labyrinth guy, did they do it?
They really nailed it. It is Labyrinth through and through. It has all of the characters and little bits. Let's talk about the flyer first.
Because we love our flyers.
Because we love it. And they did a great job. There's no puns, which makes me a little sad.
They got David Bowie right on there, which was a good idea.
They knew exactly what to do.
It's an all-new pinball adventure.
Yes, return to Jim Henson's most iconic world of goblins, mazes, bogs, and more as you venture on your own quest to escape the Goblin King's labyrinth.
Featuring the music of David Bowie from the Labyrinth soundtrack.
Yes, Magic Dance, that's the one that everybody knows. Underground, Chilly Down, As the World Falls Down, also a very good one. Within You. But the backglass with David Bowie and his teased hair and eyebrows. It's just awesome.
I like with the modern licensing, you need 2 paragraphs of credits at the bottom of all the licensors. Yes.
Who owns what?
Yep.
Can we zoom in on that? Let me see if I can zoom in and see if I can actually. All game elements, barrels of fun. Jim Henson trademark and logo. Labyrinth trademark and logo. Jim Henson Company, motion picture. Labyrinth Enterprises. Magic Dance, all the music is owned by WC Music Corp.
Probably a David Bowie license for his likeness or something.
There's a lot of fine print down there, which is pretty funny. When we look at the back side of this flyer, it is Labyrinth. So Labyrinth is so this girl, she gets sucked into this maze that's always shifting and changing, and it has all these weird, strange, Muppety characters down there. And those characters, along with the labyrinth themselves, are just the core of that entire film. Each one of those little details are in this pin. This is why I wanted to do an episode on it, because I love Labyrinth, and this screams it. The little worm dude that's sort of the guide that she meets when she first enters the labyrinth, his name is, I think, Ello, which is short for hello, pops up over by the skill shot area. And then they have the pop-up sculpts that are the, what the heck do they call those guys? They're like these little, and they tease you and harass you and bother you.
All I know is they had me when you drain on the left side and the little guy pops out of the apron and mocks you. If the game is mocking me in any way, I'm immediately a fan.
It has Sirdidimus, which is the little dude on the horse.
Sirdidimus, okay.
I think that was his name, yeah, Sirdidimus. The wise man, who's like this creepy, weird, guy. It's just, man.
And
so good.
And if you look at the playfield in the back panel, we see an LCD display.
So we alluded to this earlier, that is one of the pick-offs from Deeproot. Yep. And what happened was they had an opportunity to buy all these LCD screens, so they just bought them cheap.
And we should say they are different. They're longer and thinner, and that's what Deeproot was going to use in their games. So they found that it would be perfect for the back panel.
So they stick it in the back panel, and then under various scenes, it'll change. It'll show some detailed information in the background. But there's one of the most famous scenes in the film is when they're in this hedgerow. And in the hedgerow, there's these goblins that are trying to chase them down. They have these little sticks with a nipper on the end, and it bites people. It's sort of instead of having a sword or a spear, they've got a stick with a nipper on the end. And you can just see these nippers kind of bouncing above the hedgerows because the actual goblins are super short. And it's hilarious. And you can actually get this nipper shooter rod, which is really cool. It's just that they knew what they had to do, and they hammered it right out of here. It's so good. So beyond that, though, we've got 3 flippers, 2 major ramps. We've got spinners. You got everything. Everything you need. Got drop targets.
Galore.
They nailed what they needed to nail when it came to the look and feel. So hats off to them for knowing that. They actually delivered one of these games to Henson Studios in Los Angeles, which is kind of neat.
And then there was the topper.
So toppers have gotten pretty wild here in the last little while, right? So the first, I think, crazy kind of cool topper after that Bally Williams, toppers disappeared when Bally Williams disappeared.
Well, cool toppers.
Yeah.
Technically, Stern had the one that's a tournament pinball on it.
Yeah, that's not.
That doesn't even though it's literally a topper, that doesn't count.
Okay. It doesn't count.
Okay.
No. Just because it sits on the top of the machine where a topper would sit does not make it a topper.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the first major milestone in the new age of toppers was the Ghostbusters topper, which was just this cheap kind of crappy plastic thing that went on top of, and it looked like the lights from the Ghostbusters car, Ecto 1 or whatever. Then the next, I think, major topper milestone was probably Black Knight?
Black Knight was good.
Where it's this animatronic Black Knight that moves left and right and up and down.
And Chicago Gaming had all their cool toppers from Attack from Mars and Monster Bash and all that.
Hey guys, as a quick heads up, I wanted to let you know that in my real life, I'm David the Advice Guy. At Dennis Financial, we aren't investment advisors or insurance agents. I always thought that sounded terrible. We want to provide you with sound financial advice. In fact, we want to provide you with investment and insurance advice for life, and we take that honor very seriously. Do you know individuals who received financial advice for 10 years have 2 times the financial assets of unadvised individuals? For example, you've got mortgage insurance at the bank, right? Well, did you know a 40-year-old non-smoker can save $30 a month every month for 20 years just from shopping around for a more competitive rate? Now just imagine what a pinhead like you could do with that extra money. Toppers and shooter rods, anyone? If you're looking for a more human dimension to your financial advice, Dennis Financial Inc. has you covered with advisors licensed in most Canadian provinces. Contact me via email at david@dennisfinancial.net for a free rate quote and a copy of our Value of Advice ebook, or check out dennisfinancial.ca. Insurance solutions provided by Dennis Financial Inc., Canadian residents only. Now, the next biggest, I would say, escalation in the topper wars is definitely this Jim Henson's Labyrinth topper. This is the 3 Goblins interactive topper. You can see this on YouTube, and it is worth it to take a look. So not only is it like a pieces of plastic stuck together and animatronics and lights in eyes, this is like full rubbery kind of faces that move and almost like move their jaws and stuff. It is like something that you would see. Let's call it animatronic, right? Like it is like almost Disney-esque.
Now, are these characters from the movie? Like, do they have names?
These characters are from the movies. Their name escapes me at the moment.
Ah, okay.
But they are specific characters. They are modeled after those specific characters. And this was done by an individual his name escapes me, who I should have looked up, but I'm not going to because we're already recording and I'm lazy. And he worked for Peter Jackson's production company, or does work for Peter Jackson's production company called Weta FX. And that's part of, I think, Wingnut Films or something. And he is a friend of David Van Ness, likely from the Australian film school days. And he's a sculptor. He loves Labyrinth. And as soon as he heard about Labyrinth, he's like, oh yeah, let me do a sculpt for you. And he came out with this topper, and it is unbelievable. What do you think?
I think I just played a Labyrinth last weekend.
Yeah, and did it have a creepy topper?
Yes, it had the topper.
And they like harass you, right?
They do talk a lot, yes.
Yeah, and then their eyes glow like red. Very creepy. Keeps you up at night, I'm sure.
Then it's got the shooter rod that's like enormous. The end of it, the nipper shooter rod.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of shooter rods.
Because
I like just the regular shooter
If
rod.
you have to hit a skill shot or something, having this huge thing at the end of it.
See, the thing is with me, it has nothing to do with skill shot or whatever. It has everything to do with the way I just grab it. I don't like it being this big chunky. I just like the regular Stern style kind of just bloop.
Well, it's not Stern. You mean regular plunger style. That's been around since like the 30s or 40s.
You can also buy an alternate back glass, which is like the mirrored glass back glass.
Basically, if you don't want big David Bowie head, they have the other back glass that doesn't have David Bowie on it.
Personally, the David Bowie is where it's at, in my opinion.
Yeah, I thought more people would be into the alternate back glass than...
Nope.
But most people seem to want Mr. Bowie on there.
That's because it screams hilarious 80s. The puffy teased hair, the David Bowie makeup. It's so iconic. Did you know they're going to make a new Labyrinth film?
Oh, God, no.
Yeah?
Why can't they make anything original?
Because nobody has any original ideas.
No one has any talent. Hollywood
Everything's
sucks.
been done again.
Oh, God. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Don't get me going on that stuff.
So they actually started shipping those toppers in January of 2024. Pretty close to production. Stern can't seem to get their accessories out within a 12-month period, which is pretty wild.
Did we go into the big debut? I mean, they debuted at the 2023 Texas Pinball Festival. I think I did talk a little about that. They had, I don't know, like 10 of them there. They had other ones available for sale. They had a huge line, a cool display. It was one of the more impressive debuts I've seen. And they actually worked. Like, I've seen impressive debuts before, but, I remember the Alien debut and it kept breaking. I remember Big Lebowski, and the thing broke while I was playing it, kept breaking. These were they worked pretty well the whole show. I didn't see playfields up in the service position at any point.
Which is pretty great. And then people left the show with some that they bought. which to my understanding are still working.
Yeah, and other people were like, yeah, I'm putting my order in. That's where if you're a
Yeah.
distributor, you were hoping that you're a distributor for Barrels of Fun. They also, we got to talk about the name. This is the first time we find out what the name is of this company, too.
Yeah, because they just appeared.
Yeah, and now it's just Barrels of Fun. What was your reaction to the name?
I thought it was fine.
I
thought it was
I
fine.
was not a fan. I was
No?
just like, it's got to have a better name than that.
No, I thought it was fine.
It doesn't really say there's no pinball in the title, but I guess the idea is, and that's the other thing, supposedly they're going to make more than just pinball.
Yeah, it's going to be manufactured collectibles.
Yes. So I guess from that perspective, okay, you don't put pinball in the title, but I don't know. It's never crazy about the name.
I think it's fine. It's not as good as Ramps.
Oh God. Ramps Pinball Manufacturing, the new name that was just announced.
Like, I mean, it's not that good, but I mean, it's cool. It's fine. It's a bit different. We'll see where it goes. Let's talk about some of the milestones. So it blew up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it won the TWIPY Award in 2023 for Topper Toys and Mechs. It won a People's Choice Award at Modern Pinball for Modern Pinball at MGC.
Which is the Midwest Gaming Classic, for those who don't know what that means.
Yes, it won Best in Show at the Modern Pinball for Modern Pinball at the Brisbane Masters in Australia in 2024.
You said Brisbane right. Very good.
Yeah, it became the main sponsor for the return of Pinburg.
Yes.
In July of 2024.
It did not last the whole tournament, though.
No,
I have to be truthful. It didn't last.
It was kicked around a lot.
It was played a lot, but yeah, it didn't last to the end of the tournament.
They did it. It's not all rainbows and unicorns, though. They did struggle a bit. You got to have growing pains as you scale up, because I think they spoke about 750 was like the number they were going for, but I think they were actually like limited to like 1,100 units worldwide. They've kind of blown through that number. They've really pushed a lot of units out and haven't had a lot of, like, there's no angry pinside.
I haven't seen too many
yet.
angry pinsiders complaining about a zillion broken servos or stuff not working on their game.
Yeah, or they call up for support, there's nobody there, or they didn't renew the contract of all their employees and now they're just going to start again.
Well, David Van Ness says, growing the company from a small team to over 25 employees has been a huge learning curve for me. Adjusting our production goals to meet the overwhelming demand has been both exciting and challenging, impacting logistics, HR, quality control, and development. Managing rapid growth and navigating supply chain issues has been a head spinner. But the support of our team, distributors, customers, fans, and family keeps me focused. I'm determined not to let them down. These hurdles have taught us invaluable lessons and strengthened our foundation for the future.
Right? It's like a duck on the water. Okay? The duck is just kind of cruising. You just see it, you're like, oh, look at the ducks. They're so cute. But then under the water, it's like these legs are going like 1,000,000 miles an hour.
I was wondering where you were going there with that. I've never heard the duck analogy.
You've never heard the duck.
Quack.
So we talk about the duck all the time. Duck in Canada is the whole thing. It's all about the duck and the beaver.
Is that your like national animal?
No, it's our national animal's the beaver.
Cool.
Yeah. You can also make a lot of jokes about it.
Yes, we could, but not on this. We're highbrow.
We're not like the Slam Tilt podcast, your other podcast. That's what's happening, right? Is they're talking about all these challenges and issues they have scaling up, but I mean, I'm completely unaware of these issues. You know what I mean? Like underneath the surface, all this stuff is going on crazy, like the duck's leg. But on top, it just seems like they're cruising.
Positiveness, they probably did not expect the amount of demand that came.
I think you're probably right.
Especially after things like Deeproot happened, people might be a little sour on new companies and just going all in, but that was not the case at all. I think the pinball audience has shown like they have no memory.
Yeah.
And if you put a good product out there, it's just, they're going to go for it. Especially if it's not like all the money's up front or something. Like I could just pay and get my game. Like it's actually ready.
Yeah. No down payments.
Wow, that would be great.
No Kickstarters. That's the way you don't have to wait 12 months or 2 years.
Although Spooky has been able to make the deposit system work.
But here's the thing, okay? As you're scaling up, a lot of stress, a lot of worry, a lot of back and forth. Well, how do the team members of David Van Ness and Brian Savage work together?
Well, David says, we are the epitome of yin and yang. Our strong personalities challenge each other to improve and to double check ourselves. There are so many moving parts in this business. It's not about it's a we company. His experience and guidance has been instrumental in our success, and I value his contributions deeply.
Oh,
What does Brian say?
Brian says, our partnership has been fantastic as we work extremely well together. David is focused on building machines, and I'm focused on building the back end of the business. Each is a totally different task. Since I work remotely, David is the one who has to manage all the people and the day-to-day business. His inside the industry contacts are stellar, as is his reputation in the industry. I dare say neither of us could have done it without each other. So we can see there's a separation of powers here.
Well, it's very, David is the creative force behind the games, and Brian is like the money man with the facilities and all that.
Right. He's the George Gomez. He's running the studio. He's dealing with all that stuff.
Brian
I'm
is
sure
the Gary Stern.
Probably a little taller, a lot less glasses.
More hair.
Does Labyrinth pass the Ron Hallett test?
As a game, I would buy it. As a theme, I would not buy it because I just never seen Labyrinth.
You should watch it. You would enjoy it, I think. Labyrinth is the kind of 80s movie that I think you would enjoy.
But just knowing the kind of licensing or the licensing success David Van Hess has had, I am very curious to see what the next game is going to be. I mean, you figure if he has any kind of relationship with Henson, like what else could you do? You could do a Dark Crystal. I don't know how that would sell, but you could just make a plain Muppets.
Oh my God, if there was a Muppets.
Everyone wants, that's the one I hear all the time. Everyone wants just a regular Muppets pen.
Yeah, man. If there was a Muppets pin would be a hard thing for me to like pass up. And the whole trade war conversation between, Canada and the US at the moment, which we have not touched on. Buying US products from US companies is very faux pas at the moment. But I'll tell you what, man, a Muppets pin from like a Barrels of Fun
with a Stadler how do you say it? Stadler and it's up to the hotel. Waldorf topper. Ooh, animatronic, and they both insult you.
Oh man, could you imagine?
Hey, what happened to the ball? It disappeared. Ha ha!
All the pig jokes.
Pigs in space.
Oh my God.
Birdie, put the bird in the bird. Oh, I want one now. Make it happen. Barrels of Fun. I demand
that's a good
Muppets machine.
Dune. People have mentioned Dune was another one. Dune would be pretty cool. That's kind of fun. I don't know, like if it's the new Dune or the old Dune, which is also itself kind of hilarious.
Oh God, if it's the old Dune, is it going to have like Sting on there with like no clothes on, saying "I will kill you"?
Sting with a bulge, also a big deal.
Yes. Ugh.
There's been rumors of Fifth Element was a rumor for a while.
Yes.
Which is a good one. I love Fifth Element. That's a nostalgia.
If they follow their pattern, it's going to have to be something that can really be the world under glass. It's going to have to be something
multipass.
Like in its own world.
I'm excited to see what's going on with Barrels of Fun, which is why I think I jumped into this episode because I'm impressed with what.
And I would think it has to be announced this year. I mean,
it
might
surely
be coming. We're a month and a half away from Texas. They built their 750 labyrinths. It's been 2 years.
Yeah. In addition to that, actually, so when I was doing the research of this episode, sort of December, January, early January of 24-25, the Barrels of Fun website was down for a while, and they were doing some changes and modification to their website. So I don't know if that's like hiding stuff in the background.
Yeah, the flyers are already ready. See if you can hack the site and get all the info.
Right. I don't know if that's like setting up a new e-commerce like website component.
I'm only kidding, Barrels of Fun. Don't do that. Don't be like Stern where there's just a link and you find it and like, oh, look at that, a flyer or something, or hey, a video. Hey, there's the trailer.
Yeah, exactly. Don't do that. That was what was that? Was that a JJP error a few years ago?
They've all done it. They've all done it where they have the link. It's like it's unlisted. But it's not private, so if you just stumble on it or can find it, boom, there it is. Yeah, and there's plenty of nerds in pinball if you haven't noticed.
Jump on the Barrels of Fun Facebook page. I got some milestone information just to wrap it up here.
They shipped their first 100 labyrinths by February 21st. Then they were at 270 on June 14th, 400 by August 16th, so 2024, and 500 as of September 24th, 2024. And then 559 games on their first anniversary of October 13th, 2024. I guess they consider that their first anniversary when they started full production. I assume.
Yeah.
And as of December 16th, 2024, they have built over 750 labyrinths and made even more in the last weeks of the year.
Yeah, and now we're in February, so they've had another 2 months.
They got to be. Well, what is? Let's see. What does David Van Ness say about what's next? He says, and what's next? We are currently planning 3 to 5 years ahead in facilities and intellectual property, with a vision that extends into the next decade. The planning process is dynamic, and it hopefully allows us to remain agile in the short term while staying aligned with our long-term goals. Wow, a lot of very businessy speak there. Yeah. Yes. And he has the process in there. God, I hate that.
Yeah. Synergy. We have dynamic synergy.
The planning process. You mean planning.
Yeah. Planning. Yeah. You're just planning. Yeah, exactly. We're going to onboard all of these IP.
I think you have to talk this way now. It's some kind of law. Otherwise you don't seem like you're professional enough or know what you're doing.
Exactly. Now here's the thing, right? Most of these companies, most big companies, they're planning 10 years out, right? And you plan 10 years out, and then, of course, 10 years out is like a crapshoot, right? Lots can change in a year.
A lot can change.
So you got your 3 to 5 year plans, you got your 10-year vision, and you just sort of navigate the waters of which you go out of there. The other thing is if the U.S. starts a trade war with the rest of the world, that's going to cause a lot of issues when it comes to importing parts from other countries. So if they're in a place like Texas where they can maybe manufacture more of those parts with the expertise they have, hopefully that'll keep their prices down. Because if they're fighting off tariffs, that's going to be a problem for the pinball manufacturing industry.
You'll literally be able to tell which pinball manufacturers import more stuff.
Yeah.
Because I know companies like, Spooky likes to make as much of their own stuff as possible. They could be in a better position. Like, hey, our prices haven't changed,
Do they want to take down Stern? Is this what they're doing?
Because Brian Savage says, we don't want to be the biggest. We just want to do the best job that can be done for our customers.
That means selling 500 or 1,000 machines, but them being like collectorish items. That's a big deal. That's what they're focused on.
Which is pretty much the Spooky model.
Yeah, which is why Spooky has been successful, I think.
Yeah, and they have several other employees from Spooky that are there.
Pripke.
Well, Pripke's he's done games for different companies. I'm trying to think which one he did. I think he did the original Cactus Canyon Continued or whatever it was called back in the day. So Barrels of Fun. I am looking forward to whatever their next game is. Please be Muppets. That would be great. Oh, that's great. Okay, here we go. As always, you can send your comments, questions, corrections, and concerns to silverballchronicles@gmail.com. We look forward to all your messages, and we read every one. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcatcher. Turn on automatic download so you don't miss a single episode. Remember to leave us a 5-star review or whatever the highest star level is. That way more people can find us. Join us on Patreon to support the show. Becoming a Pro Crony is the perfect way to say thanks, and it starts at $3 a month. Want to get early access to episodes before everyone else? Have a strange love for stickers? Join the Discord chat by jumping on at $6 a month as a premium crony. Want all the other perks and a t-shirt after 3 months? Join us at $20 a month as an elitist crony. Maybe you just want a t-shirt, I understand. Swing on over to silverballswag.com and pick up a Silverball Chronicles t-shirt. I'm out of here.
And when we were recording that, and Ron did, I did that again. When we were, holy moly.
Than the typical LCD screen. They're longer and thinner. And that's what
she said.
Edit. I don't know. And when they just did a Muppet theme, maybe they want to like kind of space that out, have a non-Muppet theme, and then go back to a Muppet theme.
Tommy Douglas. Former member. Oh God, 1904.
He was originally from England. Scottish-born Canadian politician. Oh. Let's see. Okay, here we go. In 1930, Douglas married Irma Dempsey, a music student. They had one daughter, actress Shirley Douglas. His daughter Shirley married actor Donald Sutherland. Together they had a son named Kiefer Sutherland.